Yeah, and I mean, looking back at your career, I obviously remember it when you were on these huge teams, and you and David, the two Spaniards, always on the podium. And but prior to that, you were racing like hardtails or bikes with not great suspension on the world circuit. Like, what was the transition like into the world stage for you when maybe you realized I want to make a career of it? Was there that
Yes.
decision, or was it just total organic, natural progression, like doing a national, doing a European race, and then the rest is history? How did it look for you?
It was a decision. So, it was this mountain bike and then my brother's mountain bike. I used to take it for a ride, get lost in the forest, came back, whatever. And uh, a couple of years later, a friend of mine convinced me, like, Oscar, this mountain bike race, why don't we sign up for this thing? I have already done a few. Absolutely no idea what was going to happen. I didn't know. I thought about it more like enduro foreman nowadays. That's how I picture mountain bike in my brain. So it's like, okay, that's going to be like this big bike. So imagine me showing up on baggy BMX pants, flat pedals, whatever my gear I used to race trials with. So I show up there, and then I see all these people like, putting cream on their legs. I remember it was a rainy late afternoon, fall, probably November, and it was like this, big loop, 40K under the rain. I did it. I just came behind my friend. Obviously, the first 4 or 5 Ks, I was in, close to the lead, only 4 Ks, and then it's like back, and then struggling to finish the thing. And I told him like, "Don't ever call me again to do this thing." I was not prepared. I was not expecting. I was not trained for endurance at all. So the same guy, called me like 6 months later. James called me back and says like, Oscar, now I really think this is your thing. It's called downhill mountain biking. I was like, what is this? It's like, yeah, it's short. It's all downhill. There is no endurance involved. You're gonna love this thing. So showed up there with my first bike,
So
which was in
same guy that took you to an XC race
same
calls you
guy.
back. Like, so you
Yes.
didn't even know the sport exists at this stage.
No, no idea. So I knew that mountain bike, the first national championship already happened in Spain, but I didn't know about downhill. And so it's like, okay, that's going to be like a regional race. It's downhill. We got to show up and let's check out this thing. And of course, absolutely no clue. Showing up there with license, signing up, paying for registration, and the race. Everyone already was shuttling, and everyone had an idea on the course. I walked up, and then I raced down. That was my baptism in downhill, and I got second. But I had this feeling where it's like that is what I want to do, because he had a mix. To me, he had a mix. He waked up. He woke up a mix, a call inside that was like, this is a perfect mix between the technique on trials that I can really apply many things, and the speed I always liked. So I always was a big speed fan. I like the to test the limits in speed, but this involved really technique skill. So it's like I told him like, man, you nail it. I want to do this. I raced this on my first Nishiki aerial. So that was my first bike. So I got into my brother's mountain bike. Then I bought this Nishiki aerial. Uh, for the 91 season. So I raced only 3, 4 races. The bike was a little bit small, so I decided to change the bike in the year after. So I bought a K2, same brand of skis. So it was a K2, it was a way bigger bike. Uh, Both were hardtail originally, but at the Nishiki, the local bike shop, they saw like I was fast enough, so they decided to throw a front suspension fork. Really very innovative back then. I think Manitou had their fork, RockShox had their fork, which was like a black lowers. Manitou had the elastomer ones. This was a Italian Forciella springs, and so I raced this one in 91, and then 92 I raced completely hardtail bike. So everything was hardtail in 92. Then 93 was looking for a sponsor somewhere. I needed help. It's like I really want to race this. I want to take this serious. And then the first magazines always like, they start to come, the first magazines, and I start seeing the first American stars. So I started seeing like Greg Herbal, John Tomac, all these big. stars in mountain bike. All the icons were on the magazines, and I was like, I have to make it overseas. I want to do this professionally, and I really got like super focused to actually jump on a Alpine Star sponsorship in '93. So the bike was a hardtail with a front fork, and then I would race. I won the first national title in '93. So I was a rookie, and then all of a sudden I show up to nationals, beat everyone, and then from there, everything kind of like scale. So I decided to go. My sponsor gave me like a bonus on an envelope and said like, Oscar, now you can go to World Cups. We will pay for it. And then I showed up to a couple of World Cups, which the first one was Capdale, super rocky Roman way, absolutely shocking. That was like, more than shocking, was like a big slap on the face. I would go there and then I look at, Dave Collin, and he was like a current world champion, Mike King, everyone. I mean, the Europeans, the fast European, the Frenchies, Gachet, all those people, they had full suspension bikes. Nicolas Vouillot, full suspension bike. Disc brakes, I had nothing. And I thought like, it's like, I gotta beat those guys. I gotta make it. To me, it was like a train passing by, and it's like, I gotta jump on this train. I saw immediately like, this is an opportunity. I somehow make it. So I was like 65th, I think, on the first World Cup. Then I showed up in Caprun, and I think I got like 22nd or 20th or something like this already in my second World Cup. And I was like, okay, this is going well. And then I got a full suspension bike the year after by Alpinester
But
'94.
so your bike was way crapper the first two races. Like these
Oh
guys were
yeah,
on factory gear. And for context, that track, because I've seen some footage, would you say that's okay? Obviously, it's maybe not as flowy as the current track, but the roughness and length would be quite gnarly on today's downhill bikes, right? And you were
I would
back
not
then,
say.
like
Yeah,
that track seemed crazy.
maybe it was crazy back then. Obviously, like the wheels were way smaller and no suspension. I mean, we're talking like the guys that had more, suspension travel. Like the best suspensions were like 4 inch, 4 inch of travel.
Yeah,
The
and then
casing of
they
the
had a big
tires,
advantage.
yes, but the casing of the tires, everyone would flat. Everyone was pumping tires using double tubes inside. Um, like I didn't have a chain device, so well, half the way down, my chain was off. Absolutely. So I had to like push a lot of the times my feet, with the front derailleur, shifting down to shift up and put the chain back on. I mean, it has nothing to do on like today's downhill is absolutely another world. Like to my first race, obviously that quickly evolved. In '94, we all had full suspension bikes. Disc brakes were still in the transition. Some people would have disc brakes, some others won't, or opted for V brakes. But then it's like, I think it's like '95. To me, it was like '94, '5, and '6. The bikes were evolving. So Double Crown was already '96. So the best guys would, RockShox had a double crown, Manitou had a double crown, everyone. And then to me, the evolution in downhill was really quick that first years. Up to where '98, '99, the bikes were like, I would say, like already similar to the bikes nowadays. Obviously, shorter travel still, smaller wheels, and the equipment wasn't by far as good as they are now. If you look at suspension nowadays and how capable bikes are now, and what happened back in the day, I mean, mechanical failures was a thing. You had cartridges blowing up, you had flat tires, wheels collapsing, cranks snapping. I mean, you name it, everything. So it was a huge test for product, huge test.